Wednesday, Young and the Restless fans. We have got your early weekly spoilers for the week of June 15th through the 19th, and I have to tell you, there is a lot happening in Genoa City right now, and it is all hitting at once in the best possible way. We are talking about Nikki Newman getting blindsided on not one, not two, but three different fronts: her health, her family, and her business world, all colliding at the same time. Plus, Adam Newman is in full paranoia mode over a certain villain who is apparently trying to turn over a new leaf, and Adam is absolutely not buying it for one single second. It is a packed, dramatic, emotionally loaded week, and I cannot wait to break it all down for you. I'm Belinda from Soap Dirt. And before we get into everything coming the week of June 15th, please do not forget to click that subscribe button if you are not already following us. We are here every single week with the spoilers and the breakdowns and the opinions, and you do not want to miss any of it. Okay? Let's get into it. And as we always do on early edition day, we're going to start with what is still coming the rest of this current week, and then we are going to shift into all of next week's drama. So, let's start right there. On Wednesday, June 10th, we are at the Shadow Room opening, and there is a lot happening on multiple fronts in this venue tonight. Lily meets up with Kane, and she is happy. She is glowing. She is clearly pleased to be walking in on his arm, and he is equally thrilled. There is a warmth between these two that the show has been building carefully, and it really does land. And then Lily brings up the conversation Kane had with Malcolm, wanting to know how that went. And Kane tells her he was honest. He told Malcolm that he loves Lily. He said it plainly and directly, and Malcolm, predictably, was not exactly thrilled about that. Which, okay, Malcolm's reaction is understandable. This is his family, this is complicated history, and you do not just drop an "I love your family" member on someone and expect a standing ovation. But Kane did the right thing by being upfront about it. And then Lily drops the other piece of news. She tells Kane that she has already told Malcolm she is appointing Kane as CEO of Chancellor. And the conversation between them turns to whether to announce it that very night. Kane, being the more measured one in this pairing, pumps the brakes. He tells Lily not to provoke Victoria. And he also reminds her that the CEO announcement is going to ruffle a lot of feathers beyond just Victoria. Devin, Nate, the whole extended family ecosystem is going to have opinions. And Lily basically shrugs. She is not interested in managing other people's feelings about a decision she has every right to make. She figures Kane is talking about Devin and Nate specifically, and she's like, I do not care what they think. I love that energy from Lily. She has spent so much of her story deferring to other people's comfort, and this version of her, the one who is making decisive moves and owning them unapologetically, is so refreshing to watch. Also at the launch, Daniel, Danny, and Christine all show up, and Daniel is immediately in anxious mode because he has been trying to reach Danny, and Danny basically fell off the radar for a stretch. Daniel's mind went straight to Patty Williams, because once Patty tried to kill Summer, you never really stop looking over your shoulder when someone you care about goes silent unexpectedly. He brings up his fears to Christine, specifically the Patty angle, and they are both in that tense place of waiting to find out what happened. And then it turns out, Danny just missed a flight. That is it. No villain, no crisis, no Patty. He just missed a flight. The relief in that room must have been palpable. And then Danny drops his own news on them. He is done touring. The rockstar life is officially behind him. He is planting roots in Genoa City, and he is staying. And Christine and Daniel, because they know him so well, immediately start teasing him that he'll not last 2 months before the road calls him back. Which, honestly, that is fair. Danny has never been the kind of person who stays still for very long. But for now, he says he is done, and we will see how that holds. Victoria tells Noah that she likes him with Sienna, which is a sweet moment, and Noah is doing his best impression of a man who has it all together while clearly being a little smitten. He is floating around the club, and meanwhile Sienna is behind the bar absolutely overwhelmed because several staff members did not show up for the opening night of a brand new venue, which is every hospitality professional's nightmare. And then Danny, rock star, international touring legend, Grammy-adjacent legend of Genoa City, sees that Sienna is struggling and without anyone asking him to, just walks behind the bar and starts helping. And she is thrilled. Because of course she is. How many bars can say they had a rock star slinging drinks on opening night? That is a story you tell forever. I love this moment for Danny because it is so genuinely him. No fanfare, no announcement, just stepping in because someone needed help. Daniel and Christine get a quieter moment to talk about Phyllis, and Daniel is wrestling with something real. The fact that his mother did not face any meaningful consequences for everything that went down. And that kind of thing sits in your chest. When someone you love does something genuinely wrong and walks away without accountability, the frustration does not just disappear because things are technically fine now. Christine's take is interesting though, because she actually thinks Phyllis did absorb something from this experience. She thinks something shifted in Phyllis, even if the consequences were not external and visible. And Christine, of all people, Christine, who has had years of genuine conflict with Phyllis, is the one encouraging Daniel to reach out to his mom. That is character growth. That is a woman who has done her own work and is choosing grace. I respect it. Claire says that Holden seems hung up on what happened at the original Shadow Room in LA, which is interesting context to carry into this new chapter. There is clearly some weight attached to that history for him, and the fact that he is thinking about it on a night that is supposed to be celebratory says something. Claire and Holden join Lily and Kane, and Holden takes a moment to thank Kane again for saving Malcolm. That gratitude is genuine and it matters. And then the evening shifts. Holden and Claire are dancing and it is romantic and easy and lovely, and then Kane pulls Lily out onto the floor, and he kisses her, and it is everything. Pure fireworks. Lily deserves this. She's been through so much, and watching her be genuinely happy is exactly the energy this show needed to bring to her story right now. Danny and Christine get their dance moment too, and then Noah peels back behind the bar to check on Sienna again, helping her close out the rush, and she is clearly falling a little more in love with this whole new chapter of her life. The Shadow Room is working. It feels alive. It feels like a real place where things are going to happen, and that is exactly what a new venue needs to be on a show like this. Meanwhile, Audra finds Nate over at Crimson Lights, and he notices her dressed up and asks if she was at the opening. She says it is not her scene, which, that is very Audra. She is not the kind of person who shows up somewhere just because everybody else is going. Nate pushes a little, and she admits the bartender was terrible, which is obviously a dig at Sienna, and then they settle into a real conversation. They talk about Malcolm's recovery, and then Audra asks Nate something that actually lands. She asks if he misses being a doctor. And you can see it in his response. He does not say no immediately. He says it has been on his mind. And Audra presses further, asking that if surgery could fix his hand, would he go back to being a surgeon? And Nate deflects, says he likes working with his family at Winters. But the hesitation is there, and it is noticeable. And then Audra does something that I did not fully expect. She apologizes to Nate. She owns her part in what Victor and the whole conspiracy did to him. She says she is sorry for conspiring and hurting him. And Nate says she seems to have changed, and he hopes it sticks. That is not a warm hug, but it is an honest acknowledgement. And Audra's parting observation, that Nate sounded more alive talking about medicine than he ever does in a corporate meeting at Winters, is the kind of observation that you cannot just shake off. He takes off, but you can see the thought following him. And then he flashes back to Devin assaulting him and injuring his hand, and that is the wound underneath everything, not just the physical one. Sally finds Audra after that conversation and puts her own spin on it. She likes the idea of Audra focusing energy on Nate instead of circling around Noah. But Audra pushes back on the framing. She insists she is not pursuing Nate. She just thinks Noah could do better. And maybe that is true. Maybe that is her genuine opinion, but Audra and Niall have a complicated relationship, so we will see. Chelsea finds Adam in full brood mode, and he tells her he tried to reach out to Billy to actually make some peace. And it blew up. And Adam is exhausted by it. He says the constant hatred is tiring, which, yes, it is, and that is a real thing to admit. But he also expresses frustration that Chelsea sometimes sides with Billy on certain things, and he is worried that tension is going to bleed into their relationship. He compares it to Nikki being friends with Jack and how that drove a wedge between her and Victor, which is actually a surprisingly self-aware comparison for Adam to make. Chelsea reminds him that his instinct to make peace is worth something, that he should be proud of trying, but also gently reminds him that if things get heated with Billy, he needs to walk away instead of escalating. And then Adam brought up Dalia in the conversation with Billy, and that apparently made everything 10 times more complicated, which honestly was probably predictable. Dalia is not neutral territory for anyone involved in that dynamic. Nick and Nikki join them, and Nikki mentions she has not been able to reach Victor, and she is worried because there was a tornado near the venue where he was speaking in Maryland. And then, because this is the Newmans and drama follows them everywhere, Victor himself walks right in. He says he left before the storm hit, which is the kind of lucky timing that only soap opera patriarchs seem to have. Nikki asks about the other people at the event, including Jack, and Victor says he sent people to help with rescue efforts. And then, because Victor Newman cannot resist a pointed moment, he essentially tells Nikki that Jack is who she was really worried about. And then he walks away and leaves the entire group standing there with their jaws on the floor. The precision of that comment. The delivery. Victor Newman at his most Victor. On Thursday, June 11th, Victor's latest business move is going to absolutely stun the family. And I think this is the news spreading about giving Chancellor to Lily, or possibly a major Newman CEO announcement being made public. Either way, the ripple effects are wide. Victoria just found out about the Chancellor situation, and she definitely did not hear it from her father. So she is furious in that specific way you only get when you feel deliberately left out of something important by someone who should have told you first. Nikki did not expect to be back running Chancellor given everything going on personally, but she is still going to be genuinely blindsided by the specifics. And Nick and Adam already know, which creates its own tension because of course it does. Also on Thursday, Nikki is with Nick as he struggles to stay clean. She is going with him. It looks like an NA meeting, a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and Nikki being there beside him is so loaded with meaning. She has sat in those rooms herself for AA. She knows what it costs to walk in and what it means to have someone walk in beside you. This is a quiet but really powerful moment between these two. And separately, Stephanie is opening up to Nate and sharing a secret, which I need to know what that secret is. What is Stephanie carrying around that she would share with Nate, of all people? The possibilities are genuinely interesting. On Friday, June 12th, Victor puts Nikki on the spot about her health. This could be Victoria, who tipped Victor off about Nikki's debilitating headaches, or Victor may have actually witnessed one firsthand. But here's the thing, after that Jack comment on Wednesday night, Nikki is not going to be in any mood to open up to Victor. That barb landed, and it is going to sit. The trust between them is already complicated, and a comment like that does not make a woman feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Adam is keeping a very close eye on Matt this week, and Matt is pressing Victor, asking when they're going to move forward on the Kane plan. Victor says they will begin soon, which, of course, he does. Victor does not rush. He times things. And Adam, watching all of this from the sidelines, clearly suspicious and clearly worried, sets up a very specific kind of tension for the week ahead. Also, Phyllis reaches out to Summer this week, and I am genuinely hoping this means we are getting Phyllis back in Genoa City properly, because her presence has been missed. She also fills Lauren in on the fact that she gave Newman back to Victor, which Lauren is going to have opinions about because Lauren always has opinions, and they are usually right. Alright, let's get into the full week of June 15th through the 19th, because this is where things really shift. Victor's plan to use Matt to spy on Kane is moving into high gear, and I think this is going to be a fascinating cat-and-mouse situation, because Kane is not naive. He is a smart man who has navigated complicated and dangerous dynamics before, and the idea that he would not eventually pick up on being watched feels optimistic on Victor's part. But Victor's strategy might actually pivot once he finds out that Lily has appointed Kane as CEO of Chancellor, because that changes the calculus entirely. This is no longer about monitoring a man in Lily's personal life. This is about a man who now has real institutional power within a company Victor cares deeply about. That is a different threat level, and Victor is going to respond to it differently. And yes, it is going to absolutely infuriate him. Victor Newman does not like surprises, and he especially does not like feeling outmaneuvered. Lily making this move without his input or approval, in a company he essentially handed to her, is going to feel like a very personal statement. Now, a quick but important note about the Beyond the Gates crossover, because if you have been watching both shows, the timeline situation is a little confusing. Over on Beyond the Gates, Diane is there with Jack and Kyle, and she and Jack seem happy and back on solid ground together. But back in Genoa City, Diane is still missing, and there is a private eye actively searching for her. Victor's storyline, to his credit, does appear to be on the right timeline. But the Diane situation is just not lining up between the two shows, and it is genuinely strange that Young and The Restless did not do a better job of aligning those beats before the crossover aired. Because now viewers who watch both are sitting there confused, and that is not a great feeling to create around what should have been a fun, exciting event. Hopefully, they address the Genoa City side of it soon. Nick's recovery is not going to be a clean, simple process. I want to be upfront about that because head writer Josh Griffith has essentially signaled that Nick is probably going to relapse at some point. And I know that is hard to hear, because Nick trying to get clean is something you want to root for completely. But this is also truthful storytelling. Recovery is not linear. People relapse. People fight and fall and get back up and fight again. And if the show handles this with the complexity and honesty that the story deserves, it could be some of the most powerful material Eric Braeden and Josh Morrow have gotten to work with in a long time. Nikki being right there in the middle of it, as both a supportive mother and someone who understands addiction from the inside, adds layers that make this even richer. And we should get more detail this week on whatever secret Stephanie shared with Nate last week, which I am genuinely sitting here thinking about because the options are wide open and I cannot land on what makes the most sense. Whatever it is, it feels like it is going to matter. It feels like something that is going to affect more than just the two of them. But the story I am most riveted by going into next week is Nikki's health. And I want to say this clearly. This is not a routine soap opera health scare. Actress Melody Thomas Scott has spoken about this storyline and said that what Nikki is diagnosed with is something she has never played before in her entire run on this show. She did extensive research to prepare for it. She took it seriously as a performer. And when a veteran actress with that many years on a show says this is new territory for her, you pay attention. Because Melody Thomas Scott has played Nikki through almost everything imaginable. For her to say this is different, that is significant. What we know is that Nikki's vision is going to start deteriorating. She's going to notice something is wrong, and she is going to go to a doctor and get news that is genuinely frightening. And the diagnosis is not what she or anyone around her was expecting. That element of surprise, both for Nikki as a character and for us as the audience, is what makes this feel like a real story and not just a familiar template. And the aftermath is not going to be her quietly processing and making careful decisions. She's going to have to move fast, make big choices under pressure, and some of those choices are going to lead her into risky territory. I want to know what the diagnosis is. I need to know what the diagnosis is. And I think when we find out, it is going to reframe a lot of what has been happening with Nikki over the past several weeks in retrospect. When Billy finds out that Kane is running Chancellor, and he's going to find out because information like that does not stay contained in Genoa City for very long, his reaction is going to be something to watch. Billy Abbott and Chancellor Winters have a very specific and personal history, and the idea of Kane in that CEO chair is not going to sit quietly with him. There is a real possibility that Billy tries to find an angle, tries to get his foot in the door somehow. And on top of that, Billy gets his hands on a secret this week.